It is now 11 a.m., which means we are going to go ahead and get started. So, I'm Kendrick. I am your benevolent dictator and moderator for this panel. I use he, him pronouns, and I will ask my esteemed panel to introduce yourselves with your name, your pronouns, and what has brought you to this panel.
Hi, I'm Prof, they, them. I am a game designer by trade, but have many hobbies, and I was the one who proposed this panel, so that's why I'm here, because I believe very strongly in the pure value of just pure hobbies.
Wonderful.
My name is Amber. I use she, her pronouns. I am, as of last night, an award-winning artist. Thank you. Multidisciplinary storyteller. I'm an artist, writer, comic book letterer, designer. I do a lot of different things that I do monetize. So making that time to do things that I'm not monetizing is always like super valuable to me.
Beautiful. And just as a moderator, I'm here because I have a lot of hobbies. They keep me going as a human, and I make money through my day job. I love my day job. It's great. I love getting paid my million dollars as a master's level professional, but I don't want to monetize my hobbies. It would take all the joy out of them.
I'm Belich, he, him, also a game designer, work at a studio remotely. And I assume I'm on this because I'm a terrible example of somebody that can just do their hobbies.
My name is Tanya, Brody, pronouns she, her. I am a copywriter, costumer, and musician, all of which I have made into various and sundry careers. And I am on this panel because I am also Prof. Brown's guest liaison, which means I was the first person to find out they wanted to do this panel. I was like, oh, I should be on that, obviously.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you, panel. So my first question for you all is, as someone, I get to do what I love for work, and yet this still work. So this phrase, do what you do, or do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life, how does that apply to not monetizing your hobbies? Sorry, Prof, if you're up for it.
So when I became a game designer, it was never a hobby for me because I didn't know I wanted to be a game designer until I started doing it in grad school. So it very much was like, oh, I love this problem set. I would love to get to do this as a career. So even though I would do like game jams and game for fun, game design has always been like the career for me. So it was easy for me to compartmentalize everything else, like art. I've always been an artist, and people have always told me, oh, you should go into commercial art, or you should do commissions, or whatever. And I thought about doing it, but then I was like, you know what? That adage, I know that adage, and I want to protect this. And so I did that with art, I did that with writing. Like, I self-published a novel, but it was pure hobby, which is why you don't know about it, because I didn't market it, because it's just for fun. So I was fortunate enough to make my career something that I love doing every day, but it's compartmentalized to my career.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, I think between the things that I'm like monetizing, the things that I'm keeping as a hobby, because I do a lot of different creative things, and I've wanted to be a storyteller forever. I think stories are really valuable to so many people. It's something that I've really connected with for some of my earliest memories. So the form that that's taken in has shifted a little over time, but I think the joy piece is so important, and whether I'm feeling joy in it. I've always wanted to be an artist, and I feel joy in that professionally, partly because I'm doing things, I'm specifically pursuing like art forms that I love, and I think that's something that I always try to stay like really in tune with when I'm also looking at something I'm not monetizing. If I'm not enjoying it, I don't know why I would spend time doing it. I work a full-time job, day job outside of this. I do freelance, and I'm an artist outside of it. Like, there's already so many things that are taking my time that I need to do to be able to follow the career that I want to. So when I find a hobby that I'm really enjoying, like I love gardening. I never used to love gardening. I started gardening in like 2020. I am terrible at keeping plants alive, but I'm learning a little bit more about like their language and just being able to like connect with what the plant is telling me very slowly, because that takes more patience than I have. And then being able to like come out of that with like, I have some like herbs that I helped grow myself. I sometimes hesitate to say like grow myself because I technically didn't do like the growing, the plant did all the work for me, but
You fed it and watered it, took it for walkies.
I cared for it. I helped nurture it into a space where it felt it could do that. So like I have like love renting. I love working with wood. I built some like furniture pieces in my house, and those are the things that like I've had friends come over and say like, oh, like you built this table, you could absolutely make this and like sell it. I don't want to do that because I think that puts an extra pressure on it that I think would take the joy out of some of those things. Like I could definitely expand my garden and then start sharing what I have in the garden at like farmers markets and stuff, and that I think would take the joy out of it for me. So I think being very in tune with like, am I enjoying this and how am I enjoying it, has been integral in figuring out like, how do I keep this as a hobby and this is my little space just for me.
So I made a lot of interesting mistakes on this little journey, but I originally was a programmer, and the last place I worked really doing that specifically was an agency called Clockwork here in the Twin Cities. And as I was working there, we started getting into some interesting like immersive projects. And one of those was like for this big casino in Las Vegas, and lots of interesting design aspects to that along with the coding. And that ended up getting me into hardware electronics. And so from there, I was just like looking around at all the different source parts you could get and figuring out what I could do with that. And I made this little thermal printer interactive fiction story box, because that was something from my childhood that I loved, choose your own adventure, stuff like that. So of course immediately that like beelines into doing a Kickstarter and leaving the day job and all the things that we're saying you don't have to do. But what ended up happening was, like after the Kickstarter, I was on this trail where I was feeling very fulfilled that I was like making these electronic interactive games that beyond like that first one that I kind of hit was almost impossible to monetize and sell. And what it ended up doing for me was it motivated getting me invited to lots of different festivals and places to display my work. And so for a long time, I just was in the cycle of traveling a lot and doing all that and really, really enjoyed it. But I also had to figure out how to, pay the bills again. And it also pushed me into like the game design industry and those circles. And I started doing some writing for it and other design elements as like a contractor. And what happened was I found this kind of nice separation of things where I decided I wanted to do the design stuff for the work and keep the programming and the weird little technical fiddling as the hobby part. Like I basically was trying to find a way I could cut all of these things I was doing apart a little bit. So when I did my day job, I wasn't sick of doing the thing that I wanted to do. And that's where I've kind of ended up, where I cut programming completely out of like the day work, and now it's like design and narrative implementation, and then I tinker with electronics and microcontrollers on my own, and that's been a much better balance for me.
Sounds like it. Thank you.
So I started working at the Minnesota Renaissance Festival when I was 14, and I've been sewing since I was about 5. And needless to say, I started making my own costumes, and someone said, "Oh, hey, can you make one of those for me?" when I was about 16. So I have literally been taking my hobbies and making them into not even side hustles, but my full-time job since I was a teenager. I also played music at the Renaissance Festival. For those of you who are going, she looks kind of familiar. I played the harp out at the Renaissance Festival for many, many years. That was the one with the ribbon sleeves. That was me, just for all of you who are going, oh yeah, okay. So I made costumes and I toured the Renaissance Festival circuit. And so those were my two literally main jobs for years. I also have a degree in creative writing and theater. So my main job now is I am an advertising copywriter. I have the greatest respect for all of you here who've actually written honest-to-God fiction books. That's what I really wanted to do. Now I write marketing fiction, as I call it. So yeah, but what I have found is there are things that parts that I have to keep sacred for myself, things that only I do. When I was in high school and in college, I took pottery classes, and I call that my clay therapy. And I only make pottery for me. I have an entire set of dishes that I eat off of every day, and when someone says, "Oh, that's so cool, where'd you get it?" I say, "I made it." And they'd say, "Cool, can you make me one?" I'd say, "No."
Wonderful.
That's an important skill.
We love firm boundaries.
This is mine. If I have a spare one that, you're welcome to it, but I'm not going to take money for this.
Yeah.
This is my hobby. So I think that has been the clearest thing for me. I also garden. I live in California now, and my mother is a master gardener, so I grew up doing the garden thing, and I have a huge garden that I have way too much food for, but I don't sell it. I give it to food banks. Because that way, because it's way more food than I will ever need. I give it to neighbors, I give it to food banks, I give it to friends. But it's still something that's for me, because, again, it must be that whole dirt thing, the pottery, the earth, just
Oh yes, digging in it is good for you.
getting your fingers into the mud. So, but I think that's for me the thing that's helped me stay sane is having those few things that's like, no, this is mine. I'll share it with you, but you don't get to boss me around for what it is. I'll do it, and if you want some of it, that's fine, but you don't get to tell me what you want.
Beautiful. And actually that segues beautifully to my next question for the panel, which is, how do you maintain those boundaries? Or if your boundaries have been pushed, maybe not all the way to the breaking point or all the way to your limit, but pushed beyond what you're comfortable with, or pushed at all, or, people have said, "Oh, but are you sure you couldn't make that for me? Are you sure? Or like, what if I do this, or what if I do that, or what if I pay you $1 million, or whatever the case may be? Please pay me $1 million. I'd actually finish a writing project. But how do you either establish or reestablish or reinforce boundaries? What works for you folks?
It's shocking how people are dumbfounded by the idea that you wouldn't make something for money. So I make dino mask fursuit heads because I love them. They're so fun to puppet, and I made some for myself. And the closest I've ever done to anything commercial is making one for a charity auction. So that's the only time I've made one for someone else. But I had someone in the local furry community be like, "Hey, I have this great idea. Would you collaborate with me?" And first of all, I'm like, I don't feel comfortable with that, one, because my skills are pretty slapdash because I'm just doing it for fun. But I was like, no, maybe I could recommend some people who take commissions. But they were confused. They were so confused. And it felt a little weird. And I had another thing come up where I wrote a big fan fiction this year, and I've been making drawings for it and posting them on Tumblr. And I had a couple different people being like, "Oh, can I commission you for drawing?" And I went to I have a community, a fan fiction, fan art community I'm in. I was like, I don't know what to say to this. And then I don't know how to explain that this isn't I have to protect this. And they're like, just say you're not open for commissions. And I'm like, oh, that's easy, yes. And that went over more easily. And again, sometimes I do the thing of, oh, I can recommend someone to you because I know people who are always open to take commissions. But it was surprising to me how baffled people were that I wouldn't do that for money.
I was just moderating a panel earlier this week where we were talking about a similar topic, and that was brought up as it's frequently brought up as this should be an amazing compliment. If you could make money off of this, you're doing really, really well. Which I think is maybe just the society we're in right now. Because
We love our capitalism. We love our
Because I think that is a really common response. But I think one of the things for me, because sometimes I don't really know where the boundary is. So I have to try something first, and then try and like check in with myself. Because there's a couple times where like I'm a designer, but like there's design's like a really broad category. So like there's some areas in there I don't feel as skilled in or as comfortable in. There's some ways that I would use my skills where I'm not necessarily as excited about it. But like also I'm open to trying everything at once.
Cool.
So usually I end up like trying something and then I'm kind of constantly checking in with myself and I get a lot of anxiety. And like running a business is hard. Doing all the taxes and the forms and like doing everything like as it should be done legally, it's complicated. Adding additional stress when I'm not really sure what I'm doing. Like especially when I'm like really not sure what I'm doing and this is something I've normally done for fun, takes a lot of the joy out of it. So usually I'm just like, well, we can like try something once, and if it's not working, then I need to be honest with myself first, and I think that can be really hard to say no to myself first, that maybe this isn't working, and then also then to whoever I'm working with or whatever I'm working on to be like, yeah, this isn't going to happen, and now I need to set a boundary here because that crossed over into taking away the joy, and the joy is so important. So it's a hard line to find, but I think just that kind of like constantly checking in with yourself is helpful.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, actually, your last point there, something that I think about a lot. I need a lot of structure in my life, and so I kind of put myself through mental exercises to find some of the answers to these questions of like, what do I want to do with this thing? And the first one is like just kind of reminding myself it's an entire other job to manage the business of the thing. So if it's just you, like, because the occasional people asking you like, oh, can I pay you to do this? That's not like a constant, revenue stream, right? Like that's not something you can depend on. You need somebody that's finding those, clients or whatever. So it truly is just an entire other job that you probably don't want to do unless just like managing yourself sounds like a really good time. And it does not for me. And the other, like one of the other things I do is I think about like, one, is there a perfect world where I would love just doing this? Because never say never. Maybe it is something that there is a version of that you could do. So I don't like to like completely close the door on it. Like I've been learning how to garden a little. Is there a universe where that's what I do? Absolutely not. So like, I can close the door on that, and that's great. And I think the final one that's actually been very useful and sometimes very lucrative is what is the amount that I'd be like, oh hell yeah, I'll do that for you. Absolutely.
Give me $1 million.
Everybody's got a price, right? Like, and I've had that happen where I was just like, because I do a lot of technical stuff, so I can be like, oh well, if you really want me to do that, it's going to be X number of dollars an hour. And then they're like, okay, but I need it in like 2 weeks. I'll be like, oh, now it's going to be X plus X dollars an hour. And a couple of times they were like, sold. And I was like, oh, this is cheap for a lot of stuff. But I didn't have to like ruin that hobby space either. I was still able to enjoy it. I had a couple of really hard weeks, and then a lot of money to celebrate with. But like, these helped me make those decisions so that whichever way I went, at the end, I was happy with it.
Very nice, thank you so much.
So, first of all, Jerry, if you don't want to be advertising or selling yourself, that's why you come to people like me, just for the record. But also, strongly encourage you guys to have a dollar figure in mind for how much you want to charge an hour, and you may price something by the piece, but figure out how long it took to make you, how much work you put into it in terms of your mental time, your physical time, as well as all of the materials that went into it. because that's where people just totally don't think about it. It's like, oh, it won't cost me that much in materials, and then $500 later. John knows about that.
Oh, yeah.
And then take that total price and double it.
Yes, at least. And if when someone says, but I need it tomorrow,
Triple it.
yeah,
Quadruple.
just and say, oh, that's going to cost you extra. And as soon as people hear that, if they're serious, they will say, I don't care, I need it. And if they're not serious, they'll go, oh, I mean, I can't tell you how many people I have coming to my website going, oh yeah, I need copywriting done, or I need, you to look at my website or whatever. And I'm like, great. Tell me about your project. Okay, it's gonna cost you about this much. What's your budget? And they go, because they don't realize how valuable people's time is. Here's a really, really good example. I was costumer for many, many years on the Renaissance Festival circuit. I am responsible for the Tortuga twins being in tights.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that.
And the tights I made for them and for people all over the circuit had functional cod pieces. And to this day, I have the Tortuga twins on a regular basis, but also a lot of guys all over the circuit going, are you making tights? And I'm like, guys, I bill out at $150 an hour now as a copywriter. If you want to pay that much for me to make you tights, it takes me about 2.5 hours total to make a pair of tights, each individual pair, and there's the fabric. You do the math. And none of them has said yes yet.
Are they considering cost per wear because of $500 pair of tights? If you're wearing them for thousands of hours, they pay off.
They will, and they do take very good care of theirs. I made a batch for them maybe, I don't know, coming up on 9 years ago, and they're still wearing them. And they're still in really good condition. I'm very impressed.
I want to comment, like, that advice is even good for if you do want to do a hustle, but if you come at it from the perspective of protectiveness of your hobby, then you jack that price up as high as it'll go. That's what Jerry's saying, like, you have to have a price for, like, what would it take to potentially endanger the sanctity of my hobby?
Yes.
And so it's not like, it's like literally, it's very different from you pricing because you want to do commissions. And you jack that price way up. Have it in mind, like Jerry said, so it'll be easier to have a yes/no.
And for those of you who are thinking of doing a side hustle or even making something full-time, I help mentor copywriters, and this is an exercise I make them go through. Write down all of your bills, all of them. Like everything, your healthcare, your taxes, your all of your utility bills. How much do you spend on food and drink and entertainment, yada, everything. Write it all down. Figure out how much that is per month. Then figure out how many hours you want to spend doing whatever it is you're doing. Divide that monthly cost by that number of hours. That's your hourly rate. And you'll probably blanch at it and go, oh my God, that's so expensive. I'm just gonna share this now, whether it's your hobby, whether it's a side hustle, whether it's what you decide to do full time, you're worth it. Just say to yourself, I am worth it. This person is coming to me for my expertise. If they can't do it themselves, so they want me to do it, therefore I am worth it. And that's another thing to consider is maybe you don't want to make something for someone, but you'd be willing to help someone. Charge for that too. Seriously. Again, they're coming to you for your expertise. Maybe you don't have to charge them as much. Maybe you go, oh yeah, I don't have the sewing machine. I don't have the woodworking tools. I don't have the weird electronic stuff that you need to have to do woodworking. But
Very specific, weird electronic stuff.
but I would love to
Technical term.
learn, and then you're like, sure, I'm happy to teach you. It would be, we can do so many lessons, it'll be X amount.
On the flip side, if it is a hobby, then sometimes it can be beneficial to do that stuff without getting paid at all because it's your hobby and that's where your joy comes from. So even just being tempted with the idea of taking money for something can get into a sticky situation. It's less about being paid what you're worth because that's what you do for a hustle. But if you want to have a hobby without the hustle, then you have to take that into consideration. So I just want to keep reiterate, like, everything about our society drives us to, you know, advance on the things we love and make money off of them.
Be productive all
Be
the
productive all the
time.
time. So sometimes, even if sometimes the best thing you can do is to just say no.
Yeah, and to that point, I think we as a society put a value on everything. And there is a certain amount of emotional and psychological value to doing something that you just enjoy doing. And you're allowed to let that be your value. It's like, you know, I'm going to take this time away from the thing that they keep telling me I have to do to keep body and soul together and do this for my sanity because I enjoy it.
Can I emphasize one thing too, because I think it's come out a little bit too, but like there isn't one right way to do this, and I've brought that up in like other panels too, but like it's gonna be unique to you. So making sure that you're checking in with yourself, definitely make sure you're finding time for your own joy and space for your own joy and peace, but there isn't any one right way to do it. There's no one correct answer. So checking in with yourself and kind of understanding your own journey, I think is also really important for navigating all of that.
I'm going to go on a tangent because you reminded me of something. Sorry for taking over. Another factor that's very similar to the pressure to make money off of your stuff is internal guilt if you don't feel like doing it anymore. Like if you've been doing this hobby for a while and then one day you're just like, it's just not doing it, but there's also the societal pressure to like finish what you started, or I have sunk so much time into this, or this is part of my identity, I have to do this. Those are other things that you have to resist in order to preserve your peace. So, you know, maybe you have a hobby that you love to do, and then after a while things change, and it's just not doing it for you. It's okay to stop. You're not a failure for stopping the hobby that you don't enjoy anymore. But it's shockingly difficult for people to internalize that.
Yeah, phases can be a really lovely thing. So I'm seeing some hands going up. I'm going to check with my panelists. Do we want to take questions now?
You can do a wave. Let's do a wave of questions.
Yeah. Let's go to the yellow asterisk.
I guess kind of related to that, in the terms of giving yourself permission to let go of a hobby. How do you guys go about that? Because sometimes I'm like, well, I've got all these embroidery tools. Do I try to sell them, but they feel personal? They feel like part of you, and so it's kind of hard for me to sometimes go through that emotional hurdle.
Speaking as a therapist, you can make a pros and cons list. You can also keep your stuff. It is okay. I've noticed like sometimes I'll go through waves. Like I'll go through months of just writing. I never finish writing a project ever. But I go through months of writing, and then I'm like, okay, done. And then I go through months of sewing, usually right before con. And then I go through months of cooking projects and baking fixations, and I have ADHD, it's a gift. But then I come back to sometimes the other hobbies later, and sometimes I don't. There's nothing wrong with going through phases.
I had a blanket that I was crocheting that took me 7 years because I would get in and out of it, and fortunately, like, there were phases where I was like super into knitting and crocheting, and then like dry up phases. And when it was dry, you know, a lot of the yarn I would give away, but I would keep the ones for my blanket because I was like, I'll probably come back to this. And then it might have been like 2 years before I picked it back up. But that was something that I could easily store up and tuck away. And you know, I'm a regular spring cleaner. So you know, you go over it, and sometimes there's like, oh yeah, I might pick this back up one day. I'm gonna keep this.
Yeah.
But you can always, it also depends on your personal situation, because like, you know, if you're in a financial situation where if you get rid of all your stuff and then 5 years decide you want to pick it back up again, you can just buy everything and that doesn't bother you. That's one thing. But otherwise, you know, you might want to find an efficient way to tuck it away and revisit it after you've been taking a break for a good while.
Yeah, I think like space and time, right? Like give yourself some space and time and see how you're feeling about that. And like it's okay to kind of mourn. Like I mean, mourning. I'm not going to say this anymore. But like we go through these phases where certain things engage us, and it's okay to mourn the fact that you're changing or you're changing something about your life, and you don't have to do that immediately. And I've also found that like if you have other people in your life that are interested in that thing, yeah, like giving those things away to a friend or somebody else that really appreciates that and loves that is such a fun way to move on, because it's not gone, it's not out of your life. Like now you get to see this other person that's like digging into this new thing, and like they're probably gonna ask you questions, and you can still kind of like get that dopamine from helping them out and giving them advice.
And you can always go back. And seeing their pictures of the things they make on social media. I have a friend who I got back into sewing, and I just love seeing her pictures of all the stuff she's making. I'm like, yay, because I don't sew that much anymore. So it's so much, and I gave her a bunch of my stuff. Another thing is, I would say that there is in that way of the universal cat distribution system, there's also kind of a universal hobby distribution system. So when you release something into the wild, eventually something's going to come back to you, and you get to find a new joy. So you're making room for something new, and if you can remember that, you're not like, I'm giving this up, it's awful. You're just, I'm releasing something so that something new can come in. And that's a really healthy way to deal with it.
Did you just steal Jerry's microphone?
Yes, I sure did, because mine is dead.
Oh.
We're sharing. Sharing is caring.
Oh, okay. All right.
Sharing is anti-capitalist.
Sharing is caring.
I've got yours, please. I did, yes. Yes, blue circle.
Do any of you have stories of reclaiming a hobby from hustledom, something that became a hustle?
Yes, I
You
should.
lost your joy in it and you reclaimed it for yourself. I would love to hear this.
I'll start and then I'll hand over to my panelists because they'll have way more interesting stories than mine. But at the start of COVID, I was sewing and selling cotton face masks, and quickly burnt out of that because I had X number of fabrics that I had because I had them, and everyone was going to joins at that time, which RIP. And then everyone was like, oh, could you get this fabric and that fabric? Can I get it in this size and shape? I'm like, the ones I have are the ones I have. Enjoy. Or don't purchase my masks. This is not required. There are other people making other masks. Go to Etsy, go to Amazon, go to wherever you're gonna go. But these are the ones I have. And yeah, I like, especially once like better quality masks became more available, like KN95s and whatnot, or even just medical masks. Under the cotton masks, I stopped because it was too much pressure for me, and I felt like I wanted to not help people remain alive.
How long did it take for you to get your sewing joy back?
About 6 months to a year for sure. And I don't really make face masks anymore unless they're for a cosplay.
So I sewed professionally for 15, 20 years. I was a full-time professional costumer. I sewed for Renaissance festivals. I made costumes for theater productions, whole deal. And probably around year 15 to 18, I kind of went, this just isn't bringing me joy anymore. And I started transitioning to other things. And now I have more fun sewing. I was wandering around in my TARDIS costume last night. And that was really fun. And no, that was someone else, which was amazing. I have a TARDIS corset and like a little overskirt and a TARDIS, skirt of TARDIS fabric and stuff like that. It's very simple, but I had so much fun making that because A, it was for me, not for someone else, and B, because it's like I get to be creative in a way that I want to be creative, as opposed to someone saying, I want it to look like this. And I think that's a really big thing. I mean, honestly, I write for a living. I actually love what I do because I get to write every day. But sometimes I have clients who say, no, I need it this way. And I'm like, well, you can do that. It's not going to work, but we can try it. And so, whereas when I'm doing sewing for myself, if it doesn't work, I get to tear it apart and fix it because I want to. Or I can walk away and say, no, we're just not going to go with that right now. and it's really nice. So I think that there really is something to reclaiming a hobby after it has been a side hustle. Just finding the joy in it again is really helpful.
I find preventative care is the best. A lot of I did Inktober pretty regularly, but I would very much, the minute I was tired, I'd stop. I'd be like, it is not important to me to do the whole challenge and do one. I did it once. The first year I did Inktober, I pushed myself to do it every day. And I think that was at a place in my life where I was trying to understand like what I was capable of and all this stuff. And now I'm like, I know what I'm capable of. I don't need to prove anything to anyone. So the moment I start getting a little bit like tired, then I just stop and I don't care. And I think that's been helpful for me in keeping up my drawing as a hobby. So yeah, and again, that goes back to that getting over the weird cultural and societal pressure of like finishing what you start or perceiving yourself as a failure for not finishing something. And if you can get over that, then you have so much power.
Amber, you good?
I mean, I have a similar experience to you. So, and I don't know if I have like a great story of like reclaiming a hobby as a hobby, but I do have like moments in my career where I've been pushed to do things that I I really don't actually enjoy doing commissions. I know there's a lot of artists that do commissions. Having to do something that someone else was kind of directing took a lot of that joy out for me. So it's not so much the hobby, but it was something that I've, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna have to do it kind of my way and kind of put some boundaries around it so that it is still fun for me. And the main thing that I'm similar to you, like if it stops being fun, I'm just like, all right, we're not gonna do this. We're not gonna push until it's really uncomfortable. And just having to be like really confident and like I understand how I feel about that, and I need to trust that my feeling is telling me the right thing.
Wonderful. I also just want to chime in too and add that like one of the most beautiful things about letting a hobby be a hobby is that you can be a day one beginner and be absolutely terrible at something and be having the time of your life. Like if you've ever seen me play hockey, that's exactly the vibe. It's so fun. But if I had to be good at something, or like if I had to submit a writing project, like, no, it's not happening.
That I'm gonna just follow up on that because I think that's very important. It's very important to have hobbies that you're just kind of okay at, right? Or that you're outright bad at. Because in addition to the hustle pressure and the finish what you start pressure, there's also the achieve mastery pressure. Like, not every hobby that you pick up, you don't have to have the end goal of becoming like a master of that hobby. I remember I was talking about this to a friend and talking about how like a fun activity is to go to the craft store in their clearance aisle and just see whatever like dumb like craft project you could buy and just pick it up, and how like a lot of people like look down on that sort of stuff. And she told me that she was at Michael's for something and she looked over and there was like a little pot holder maker kit. And at first she just sort of like sneered at it, and then she was like, wait, no. And then she bought it and she went over to her friend's house and they made pot holders and it was great. So that third pressure of like, you don't have to become a master at your hobby. If that pressure starts making it unfun, then, and I know that's hard for a lot of people to get over because it's a big pressure we have from society, and yeah.
That really speaks to me, Prof, because like with the like electronic alt control game design stuff, I was on this like ever increasing pace like over the years of more events and getting invited to more things and like speaking engagements and all this stuff that just kept rolling and rolling. And it became this thing where it's like I always had to one-up myself essentially in that pursuit of mastery, or being the person that like does this stuff, that's recognized for this stuff, because it feels very nice. It feels very nice to be recognized and have people be like,
Like
oh,
the alt control guy.
yeah, like he's the guy. And it took the pandemic to kind of derail me from that, because you know, I had stuff booked for you know, all sorts of travel stuff and things that, and other people are paying for this stuff, so it's always, you know, it's kind of nice and exciting, but it's not like emptying your pocketbook. And all of it was canceled, just boom, instantly gone. And it was very, very difficult to deal with at first, because you're telling yourself, like, in this position, like, oh, they're gonna forget about me. Like, nobody's gonna recognize that I do this stuff anymore. Like, when this is all over, if it ever is, like, I'm gonna be gone, I'm gonna disappear. But that's not what happened, and it's not what happens. Like, the work you've done or the things that you've done don't just like evaporate, right? Like, and so I'm still like learning to come back from that, where I'm starting to do that tinkering again, and I'm starting to dig into those projects again. But I don't have to do it at a breakneck speed. I don't have to like, oh, there's an event in 3 months, I have to have original work. Like, I don't have to do that anymore, and not having that pressure is fantastic.
I'd actually like to build on that and say the other wonderful thing about a hobby is you don't have to have a deadline. I mean, unless it's a
7 years to make that blanket.
Yes, exactly.
Years.
I have a pair of sharp socks that I am making for my sister that I think I started for her birthday 10 years ago. And the pattern's just so darn confusing, it's just taking me forever, and I just have to put it down and walk away from it. And she knows she'll get them someday, and it's fun. But I think that, you know, I think that that's one of the nice things about a hobby is you can pick it up and put it down again. It's not a big deal.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone.
Can I just jump on that really quick too? Because this is
No, Oh, I see you. Don't worry. The mask. I see you.
it's a good point, and this isn't something I don't know if you could turn into a hustle, but like being able to pick it up again multiple times. Like, I think we all go through kind of phases, and one of the hobbies I have that I don't think you could ever turn into a hustle, but I still get the pressure internally myself to do better, is as a runner. And I've picked up being a runner. I've just picked up it again the third time. I kind of burned out after I did the, if there's any like Run Disney people in here, I did the Dopey several years ago, which is 4 races, 4 days in a row, and ended a marathon. It's a lot, but I got really burned out. I got really burned out, and then I wasn't, because the training is incredibly hard, and like I feel accomplished for it, and I stopped running for like 3 years. And it's really hard to pick that up when I'm like, all right, I've already done this like thing that was already really hard, like I should be able to go do it, but I can't even do a 5K right now because I haven't been running for several years. And I think practicing, like, that's okay. And I think we all go through journeys like that too, and picking it back up again, and like practicing that grace with yourself that like we're on a new journey, and that's okay. And now I've gotten to reclaim it just for fun, which is nice, because I think when I pushed myself to that point, like that's when I got burned out and it wasn't fun anymore. So
I'm hearing a lot of different stories from the panelists about like ways you've noticed the burnout, ways you've noticed your values. I love that.
Platforms and means for people who want to not make it a hustle, but occasionally sell some of the things that they've made, because Etsy keeps going down and down the hill. eBay and everything, it's very difficult when you're like, oh, I need your mask, for example. Oh, I need like 10 masks, and I have 10 extra masks I want to get rid of. But here's, you know, I'm going to have to compete with 300 people who are churning out 5 masks a day.
CONvergence art show.
Yeah, or local, just like tiny local shows or tiny local events.
I was going to say Facebook Marketplace. You can kind of like put a one and done ad up there.
But a lot of cons have art shows that you can submit stuff to. So it doesn't just have to be local. If you don't mind sending stuff, we get stuff in an art show from all over the place. So, you know, or vend at your local show. This is what I got. When it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah, I think it's showing up to stuff, right? Where the people are that you want to interact with. Like there's that crossover of the thing that you're doing. So it's just being around.
Or if it's less about getting money for it and more about getting rid of it because you're running out of space. Finding charity events, charity auctions, stuff like that, because you'll still get that gratification of seeing something you made go for like $400, but it's not about the money. It's about supporting the charity, and then you have more closet space for your next project.
As the local CONcom person, I will say, hey, GPS has a charity option.
Alrighty, folks, are there any other audience questions? Yes.
Have you ever found yourself in a place where you turn hobby into a hustle, but it has gotten to a point where you don't have time to actually focus on the things that you would like to get better at with the hobby or with like the thing in general?
Okay, so it's like
How
you're.
do you do it?
So what I'm hearing you say is like if you're so entrenched in monetizing the hobby that you no longer have time for skill development.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, I do. And I apologize to it because I really think that volunteering at conventions is amazing, and I absolutely recommend it. I wholeheartedly absolutely recommend volunteering at conventions. However, I hit a point where I was co-chair for Console Room, which is the Minnesota Doctor Who convention, for 7 years, and was on the CONcom for 10 years. And in total, including that 7 where I was co-chair. And it hit a point where it was taking up so much of my time that I wasn't actually able to be creative and follow my art and kind of pursue my career in that way. Because I was in it as co-chair. I think I was taking on a lot of like, well, if you don't have time to do it, I can help with this, I can help with this, I can help with this, and I kind of just kept growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. Setting boundaries is really important. Like I love volunteering. I do still do. I volunteer at I think 3 or 4 different conventions right now, but it's just kind of like one-off things as needed. Because I hit a point where I was kind of like, I'm spending literally all of my free time doing this thing. And I love it, and I love my community so much, and I very much appreciate it. And I don't want this to be like seen as like a don't volunteer at all, because
Please volunteer so that Amber doesn't have to.
Because it is incredibly fulfilling.
It's the dream work.
It is incredible fulfilling volunteering for conventions, and I still wholeheartedly believe that. And I think once I give myself a couple more years, I'll probably go back to it, just with some very firm boundaries for myself. But it was hard. It was really hard, and then I had to take the next year and just kind of be like, I'm not really going to be present here because I'm too mentally present still, and need to be able to kind of let it go. And it was a whole process. But it hit a point where it wasn't as fun as it could have been.
I had a similar challenge. I used to do juries for like game awards shows, and I remember there was this one game conference award, and they had this some indie award, and I got asked to be like the person that finds all the panelists and organizes them. And I was really concerned because all of their panelists for their other juries were all like white dudes. So I was like, I'm going to make a concerted effort to make a diverse judging panel for this award. And it took a shit ton of work, but I did it, and I was like really proud of it. And so like they asked me to do it again the next year. I was very sick at the time, and I was like, so worried that if I didn't do it, it would just fall back into being a big jury of white dudes. And I was so stressed out. I was like, I have to do this. I have to do this. And my mentor was like, you don't have to be the one to do the work, right? The work will get done. You just need to delegate it. And so I was like, oh, there's this feeling of like, I have to be the one to do this. Like you said, like I can take care of this. But if the work itself is the important thing, and you know that you are not in a state to do it, then it makes it easier to turn it down, to delegate it to someone else, to recommend someone else. So part of it is separating your involvement from what is important about the work, so that you can say, the best thing for this situation is not me, right? Because of the state I'm in. And finding that separation can make it easier to let go and say no to things. But it's not easy, especially when you get all wrapped up in, wanting to be like helpful, right?
Oh, that's fantastic.
Or an overachiever. I was a big overachiever. Let me tell you, if you're an overachiever, if you can get over that, your life will be so much better.
Amazing, Prof. Thank you so much.
So if I could talk to what I think you may actually be talking about, which is when it's become your hustle and you want to improve. So everyone I know who is a professional of some sort in something, and by the way, professional means you get paid. Doesn't necessarily mean you're good, it just means you get paid. That you just like have a time and a money budget for improvement. I, as a copywriter, I take classes every year. I'm part of a coaching group because I know that I need that to improve my skills so I can bring that to my clients. So, and it's tax deductible. So, and I realize that as you're getting going with things, finding that time and money budget can be hard. But what I found was the more I did it, the better I got, which meant the more money I made. So I think it's good. It's also good for us as professionals, or even just as hobbyists, to go learn new things about whatever it is that we're doing. Not even for the mastery aspect, but for the, oh my God, that's so cool aspect of, let me take the time to learn this new technique so that I can add it to my skill set, whatever that skill set may be. So my good friend John here was just telling me he went to a woodworkers conference recently where apparently all the guys were named John.
Did they all wear plaid flannel too? I need to know.
I'm going to say about half.
Delightful, thank you.
about half, yeah.
We love a good
Yeah,
uniform, thank
but
you.
the point is, he took the time to go and learn some new stuff and to talk to other people who do the same thing he does. So I think that that's something that's important. It's a bonding experience. I go to a copywriter conference and we tell some stories. Oh my God. So, and I think that it also helps you remember that we're all human too. We're not machines churning out product. We're all human, and that's really, really important, whether it's a hobby or a side hustle.
I feel like that's pretty well covered.
And I also just want to chime in also from the therapy world, exactly similar, we have to do continuing education credits to keep our licenses and keep our practices up to par, and it's for exactly that reason, to have that time carved out for it is important. So if folks are crossing your boundaries and pushing, it is okay. I thoroughly encourage everybody to practice having healthy boundaries. If you need help, let me know. It's one of my favorite things to teach people. So do we have any last audience questions? We have a little under 10 minutes left. We have about 7 minutes. We'd love at least maybe one, maybe two more questions. If y'all are feeling quiet, that's okay too. It is Sunday morning of Con. There will be no judgments. Yes. Jax.
I kind of a related, sort of somewhere between hobby and hustle. Are you ever willing to take on new projects that you might not and either charge less for them or something like that when it's a small community? And so it's something where, you kind of want to build that community a little bit more.
I do that a lot with small local, I do it more with my time than something I'm making. So small local game communities or schools that aren't the big game schools, I could go and talk to them. I'm originally from Louisville, Kentucky, and there's a great little games community in there. And whenever I'm in town, I like to say, hey, if anyone wants me to play test their stuff, I'll come and play test your games, and we have a nice, fun little night. And I do that because those small communities that aren't in the big game hubs do need that kind of support and that sort of expertise, and that's something that makes me happy. And I know it helps other people grow their skills. So that sort of stuff I'm super willing to do. But it's the same as anything, do I have the time, do I have the energy? But that's something I do seek out opportunities to do that.
Yeah, I think especially when being reached out to for different events or from schools or things like that, it's I always go through a little bit of a calculation of what state is this community in? What's do they have the resources to, get what they need? And if they don't, if they are smaller, if they don't have a lot of those opportunities, then it does factor in okay, well, I'm much more willing to provide that to people that are going to have a harder time getting that, right? And some places they're like, oh, we want you to come do this thing or do this talk or whatever, and they've got tons of funding, and they're like, oh, but we didn't budget to
Yeah,
pay
no,
for this.
if you want me, you're gonna have to pay me.
It's like, come on, you budgeted for bottled water, you budgeted for posters, budget for the people that are making the thing happen. So, and like you were saying before, boundaries. I like to leave space for that. I want to be able to give people that when those things come up, but I also need to be able to say, can't do it, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think that was the one piece, because I tend to do that too, where I'm working with a nonprofit or something. I might do it for free, I might do it for less, but I need to set a time limit. Because I think it's still taking time, and that's taking time away from other things. And I love volunteering, and I love working with nonprofits. It is beautiful, fulfilling work, and will absolutely take every second of my day if I let it. So that boundary is so important.
And you need to keep your lights on.
Right.
Feed the cats.
Yes.
Yes.
Cats are important to keep.
Try
They
to
will
feed
make
it,
you
picky
mad.
Do you have any other answers for that question, or would we like to move on to orange asterisk to my right hand side here? All right, go for it.
Yeah, just continuing on the previous question, you already touched on it a bit, but helping out people that have good intentions but don't have the budget, it's a wonderful thing. Everybody needs to have time in their budget to support things like that. But then you're also going to run into the freeloaders. Just shut them down. Don't feel bad about it, just shut them down.
And while it can be tough to differentiate, in first interactions, you'll start to notice red flags for some folks, and it is okay to say, just like this friend is saying, it is okay absolutely to say, you know what, actually I can't do this anymore, so sorry.
Don't say sorry, just shut them
Whatever your style is.
Even if you get to the point where, they keep saying, but one more thing, you can say, this is what I do for a living. We're now at the point where I need to start charging you. And again, if they really want to know it, they'll pay you. And if they're the freeloader, they'll go, oh, and just walk away and you'll never hear from them again.
I think Tanya, I think you said earlier something about that we are worth being paid for our time, 110% times 110%. I just we are worth that being paid for our time. Our skills are worth being paid for, and I think that's important to remember.
So there's actually a wonderful story about Pablo Picasso, who was just sitting sketching in a park in Paris, and a woman walked up to him and said, oh, "You're Pablo Picasso. Draw me something." And so he just sketches something and hands it to her and says, "That'll be $2,000, please." It takes him 10 minutes, and she says, that didn't take you very long. He said, "That took me years to learn. You're paying for my skill." So just case in point.
Yes, we absolutely have time for you.
Well, just kind of more on the same note, I used to read, there's a blog that used to be called Etiquette Hell, and the person who ran it basically said, I cannot accommodate your request. It's pretty much it. It's totally polite to say that, and people have this idea that etiquette is about making everyone comfortable. No, etiquette is also the way you show people that's not acceptable.
Wonderful, yes. I also maintain that sitting in discomfort is an excellent way to grow. And so if other people are upset that you've said no or held a boundary, that's
They're
not
not worth
their
your
problem.
I said, those people are not worth your time.
Exactly.
That's it.
So we do have 1 minute left. If we have one last question, anyone, please, thank you. Yes, person in the back.
I don't have a question so much as a comment. I'm a professional artist. And somebody asked me, how long did it do, once again, like Picasso, how long did it do to do that painting? And I think he was trying to, whittle the price down. And I said, well, 3 hours or 15 years, it really depends on your perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah. We charge for the perspective.
You charge
Right. Any other last thoughts from our panel? Oh, yep, go
Well,
ahead.
no, I was just gonna, add to a lot of the things that everyone was saying in terms
with the woodworking, fortunately for that is when you do it, whatever you do, whether it works or not, it's quick. So there is very, very little chance of leaving something left undone. So it'll be like, I'll finish what I'm doing and then go, nah, I need to take a break for a couple months. But then I run into the obvious problem of bowls pile up. I make bowls to get left, bowls to get left. It's more of a matter of, I don't want to ever have to make anything for anybody, so it's not like you never take commissions, but the bowls pile up, so you go, all right, art show, here is tomorrow. Put it on Facebook, who wants one, let me know, mainly you can get rid of them, because they literally have stacks all over the place, because, you do that a lot. It's always been fun to go, if someone wants a bowl, it's like, here's what I got, take it or leave it, to, your math stuff earlier. And if I make something you don't like, great. If I make something you do like, just let me know. It's fine. So I try to make those good boundaries in place because I never want to do it professionally for a job. I've got the job. It does want my overtime. But it's I make what I want to make. If other people like it, great. If not, I got a stack.
All right. Thank you, folks. So with our last, we're a little bit over 1 minute over. So quickly for our panel, where else will we find you today? You will find me at another panel for basically how are you gonna handle post-con blues? I'll start from the left.
I have one panel left today, and I am moderating for Prof and Tanya to pass, I believe. It's Best Intentions, is that what it is? In this room at 2 o'clock. And there should be some really good stories. I'm just going to sit back and look up talking.
This is actually my last panel, but if you want to see the nonsense I've been doing for the last 13-some years, jerrytron.com. That's all my stupid stuff.
This is also my last panel of the weekend, but I am down in the dealer's room until 4 p.m. today. I still have, I think, a couple pieces on the art show. And you can find me online under Raden Studios.
I'll be in Tanya's panel, and then I'll be at closing ceremonies, and otherwise I'm going to be wandering around in this cosplay for a little bit. Yeah.
I will also, because Prof isn't doing it, promote the fact that they have a book.
Oh yeah, I have a book. It's called An Unlikely Flock by Prof Brown. It's a self-published, cozy fantasy novel about people becoming friends and helping each other through their nonsense. And oh, look at that! Yes, please buy it. Please leave a review. See, that's a hobby, right? It's a hobby. I'm terrible at marketing it. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.